Hello? Hello. Okay, I'm live. Yeah, I just want to say that Leopold I of the Holy Roman Empire is perhaps my favorite emperor for this polity in, over 1,000 years of reigning, basically. Out of all the 1,000 years, this guy, small fraction, about 50 years, or to be exact, 46 years and 9 months. His reign was my favorite. Not only did he fight a great war against the Swedish and win, he ended up fighting many wars later with the French, who were allied with the Swedes, and he didn't. He started out winning, and then there were so many wars that he lost something at the end of it when he was older. But not only did he win these wars against European powers, he won a war that's even more sort of monumental against the Turks, who famously, they took Hungary at the Battle of Mohawks, 1526, right? And this is, almost 200 years later. It's 175 years later, and maybe is it more than that? No, it's never mind. So that's a long time. And at the Treaty of Karlowitz, after this great Turkish war, he recovered all of Hungary. But this time, it wasn't just part of this. It wasn't part of a this grand, imperial Spanish global empire. It was part of a much smaller Austrian empire. And what's impressive about that is that it means he took it with less resources than his predecessors had, which shows you the tenacity of this ruler. And not only that, he had an incredible general, one of the best Europe's ever seen, top five. Should be a household name, much like Leopold I himself. And this general was Prince Eugene of Savoy, who, Napoleon has considered, one of his, favorites. And Frederick the Great was actually an apprentice to him at one point. Prince Eugene of Savoy was just an unmatched war fighter, war leader. And, and obviously I can rattle off the wars that Leopold was involved with, like the Franco-Dutch War, the 9 Years' War, the War of the Spanish Succession, very important wars in Austrian society, history, development of their culture, or around the events of these wars. It's all very important for Austrian civilization. But, there's also battles like Blenheim, which is one of the most important battles in European history, especially in early modern European history. And there's also Schellenberg, and I guess I could name others, but Senda against which was in September 11th. I forget the year. I can look it up. Senta. 1697. And this was a crazy battle because it was on. You keep in mind, September 11th in New York City, less than 2,000 people died, which is still a staggering amount in the modern world. But at the Battle of Senta, roughly 30,000 Ottoman soldiers were slaughtered in a basin by artillery fire, and they were just trapped essentially, and I believe they were running across a river, and they got shot down in the river to some extent. The Tizza River. It's very impressive, and the invasion force was personally led by the Sultan Mustafa II, which just tells you like how asymmetrical this warfare seemed to have been. However, I don't think that the pride in the Austrian military should be lessened because of it. I mean, if anything, it shows you that they're just a well-oiled machine, like any good military is or has to be. whether that oiling is mechanical or it's the quality of their weaponry, the quality of the provisions, quality of the transportation, or it's just the morale, the tenacity, the ability to form interesting tactical innovations that allow you to, parlay a mountainous terrain or a forested terrain or even a flat terrain to your advantage. There's always something. There's always a charm in a military victory, no matter who's winning. And I think that the Austrians, they're not recognized by a lot of people who have a passing interest in European history, world history more so, because they're not seen as an empire. They're seen as a curiosity of an empire, but they're not seen as an empire. And eventually, if you learn more about the Spanish Empire as a layman, you will eventually learn about the Austrian Empire because they kind of run in parallel to the Spanish. They're very, very, very convoluted incest going on with cousin marriages in those two sort of branches of Europe. But needless to say, everyone loves the French. At least in my observation, people love the French, the British. Those are kind of the two. Some people like Germany, Russia, right? Scandinavia, Poland, all that. Not a lot of people are really passionate about Austrian civilization, history, military prowess, whatever. And it's because they just don't know much about it. And that's all it is. Some people, if they read up on it, they would start find themselves impressed with Bulgaria, what they did in the Middle Ages, the early Middle Ages, or in a more in a more convoluted manner, the Byzantine Empire, what they were up to in the early Middle Ages, the Iron Century, the 10th century. It's an incredible period. But I don't want to ramble. I think this Leopold I, one Leopold, right, born the 9th of June, 1640, and died the 5th of May, 1705. I really think that he should be a household name, like many of these rulers in European history. Anyway, that's it for today. All right. Cheers.